Halloween brings masks, costumes, and late-night fun, but it also brings shadows you don't notice until it's too late. Tonight's stories reveal what happens when those shadows step closer. A night shift worker finds herself watched by someone who shouldn't be there, and a man leaving a party realizes the footsteps behind him aren't going away. These are true Halloween encounters where the night itself feels like it's hunting you. This story was sent to me by someone named Rachel. She says she quit her job the week after this happened and has never worked Halloween night again. I was 19, working the overnight shift at a 24-hour convenience store near my college campus. It wasn't glamorous, but the pay was steady, and I figured Halloween would be easy. A few drunks coming in for chips or cigarettes, nothing I couldn't handle. The store was a small, bright box on the corner of a quiet intersection. Neon lights buzzing, coolers humming, the occasional car rolling past. From behind the counter I could see the whole store, front door, and most of the parking lot through the big glass windows. It made me feel safe, in theory. At first, the night was normal. A few customers in costumes grabbed sodas and candy. Some college kids bought beer and joked about getting carded. By midnight, things had slowed down. I was refilling the coffee pots, scrolling on my phone between customers. That's when I noticed him. Across the street, leaning against the lamppost, was a man in a mask. Not a fun, goofy Halloween mask. A plain, white plastic mask. The kind with no expression, just hollow eye holes and a thin mouth slit. He wore a dark hoodie pulled tight around his head. At first, I thought he was waiting for someone. A rideshare, maybe. But 15 minutes passed, then 30, and he didn't move, just stood there. Every time I glanced out the window, I saw him, same spot, same posture, watching. My chest tightened. I told myself it was nothing. People wear weird things on Halloween. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was looking right at me. Around 1 a.m., I stepped into the back room to restock shelves. When I came back, my stomach dropped. He was gone. Relief washed over me for maybe 5 seconds, until I heard the door chime. I spun around. Nobody was there. The glass door slowly shut behind a breeze. I walked to the entrance, peering out. The street was empty. The lamppost across the road stood bare. My pulse raced as I locked the door, telling myself I was just being jumpy, but the feeling of being watched only grew heavier. At 1:30, the phone rang. I picked it up automatically. "Corner Market, this is Rachel." Nothing. Just breathing. "Hello?" The line clicked dead. My hands shook as I set the phone down. I told myself to focus on my work. Customers would come, the sun would rise, and the night would pass. I stocked shelves, wiped counters, checked expiration dates. But when I reached the back cooler, I froze. Footprints, wet prints, leading from the back door to the stockroom. Heavy shoe marks, darker against the linoleum. I hadn't heard the back door open. Nobody should have been there. "Hello?" My voice cracked. Silence. I followed the prints slowly, my heart hammering. They trailed toward the stockroom, then stopped halfway, as if whoever left them had vanished into thin air. I backed away, my whole body trembling. That's when the cooler door slammed shut behind me. I screamed, spinning around. Nothing there, just the faint echo of the metal closing. I bolted back to the front counter, locking myself behind it. My breathing came in ragged gasps as I gripped the phone, ready to call the police. At 2 a.m., the door chime rang again. I looked up. The man in the mask stood in the entrance. Up close, he was taller than I expected. The white mask glowed under the fluorescent lights. The hollow eyes fixed on me. He didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood there, the door slowly shutting behind him. My voice shook. "Store's closed." It wasn't, but I didn't care. He tilted his head, slowly, deliberately. My skin crawled. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911 with shaking hands. There's a man in my store. When I looked back up, the door was swinging closed again. He was gone. The parking lot stretched empty under the neon lights. Police arrived 10 minutes later. They searched inside, outside, even checked the cameras. The footage showed me talking to empty space, the door opening and closing with no one there. They told me it was stress, or maybe some kid messing around with a costume. But I know what I saw, and sometimes, late at night when I'm alone in a brightly lit place, I still feel those hollow eyes staring at me. Waiting. The party that didn't end. This story was sent to me by someone named David. He told me he hasn't walked home alone on Halloween since this happened. I was 24, living in a small city where Halloween was more about crowded bars and house parties than trick-or-treating. That year, a friend invited me to a party just a few blocks from my apartment. Cheap beer, bad costumes, too loud music, the kind of thing you don't expect to remember. But I'll never forget how that night ended. The party itself was nothing special. I showed up in a half-hearted costume, a black hoodie, face paint smeared into something that looked vaguely like a skull. People crowded every room of the house, dancing in the living room, smoking on the porch, spilling drinks in the kitchen. The air reeked of beer, sweat, and cheap fog machine fluid. Every time the front door opened, the sound of laughter and music spilled out into the street. By 2 a.m, I'd had enough. Most of my friends had already left, and the house felt claustrophobic. My apartment was only 6 blocks away. It was cold, but I figured I'd walk, sober up a bit before crashing. I slipped out, pulling my hoodie tight around me. The street outside was quiet. Pumpkins on porches had burned down to stubs, and the occasional group of stragglers stumbled home in costumes. My breath fogged in the cold air as I started down the sidewalk. That's when I noticed him. Another guy stepped out of the party right after me. He didn't talk to anyone, didn't light a cigarette or call an Uber. Just started walking the same direction. He wore jeans, a dark jacket, and a cheap white plastic mask. The kind you buy at a drugstore, blank expression, oversized eye holes. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was Halloween after all. People wore masks. Maybe he lived nearby, but after a block, I realized he was still behind me. Same pace. Not close enough to be suspicious, but not far enough to ignore. I slowed down to check my phone. He slowed down too. I sped up, crunching over fallen leaves. So did he. The hair on my neck stood up. I turned down Elm Street. His footsteps followed. I cut across Maple. He did too. Every corner I turned, he mirrored. My pulse hammered in my ears. I told myself it was a coincidence, that I was paranoid, but when I glanced back, he was closer. Maybe 30 feet now. The mask glowed pale under the streetlight, blank eyes fixed on me. His hands stayed jammed in his jacket pockets. I swallowed hard and kept walking, trying to act casual. My apartment was 3 blocks away. Just 3 blocks. The street had gone silent. No cars, no laughter, no other people. Just the sound of my footsteps, and his, steady, deliberate. I turned again, hoping he'd keep going straight. But no, the footsteps echoed behind me, same rhythm, same pace. My stomach twisted. I dug my keys out of my pocket and clenched them in my fist. 1 block left. My legs felt heavy, my palms slick with sweat. I risked one more glance back. He was closer, 20 feet. I could hear his breathing now, shallow through the slit of the mask. That was it. I ran, my sneakers slapped against the pavement as I bolted down the sidewalk. Behind me, the sound of his footsteps quickened. He was running too. I tore around the corner onto my street, lungs burning, heart slamming against my ribs. My building loomed ahead, porch light glowing like a beacon. I fumbled with my keys, nearly dropping them as I stumbled up the steps. My fingers shook so hard I could barely fit the key in the lock. The footsteps stopped. I froze. Slowly, I turned. He stood at the bottom of the steps, perfectly still. The mask tilted up toward me, blank and pale in the porch light. His hands stayed buried in his pockets. Neither of us moved. Finally, I shoved the key into the lock and slammed the door behind me. My whole body shook as I twisted the deadbolt. I called the police, my voice cracking as I explained. They said they'd send a car to check the street. By the time they arrived, he was gone. No one else in the building had seen him. The cameras on the corner store down the street were broken. It's been 5 years since that night, and I still don't know who he was or what he wanted. But every Halloween when I head home, I can't stop myself from looking over my shoulder, because I keep remembering that blank mask under the streetlight, and the sound of footsteps quickening when I started to run. Halloween ends when the lights go out, but the fear doesn't. The stories you heard tonight are real, and they remind us that the scariest things aren't in haunted houses. They're right outside your door. If you want more true horror like this, make sure you're subscribed, because the next knock you hear might not be a trick-or-treater.